Hello and welcome back to the final video for the 2023 Thinking Skills Answer Guide series. Question 31. An amusement park opens at 8 a.m. and closes at 3 p.m. Tickets must be bought in advance, and each ticket gives access to the park for one visitor from the chosen start time. The ticket is valid from the start time for a maximum of 3 hours. Visitors may arrive at any time during the 3 hours. The table shows the number of tickets sold for last Monday. What is the greatest number of visitors that could have been in the amusement park at 12:30 p.m.? So if it's 12:30 p.m., it's not going to be any later than this box. The start time can't be any later than this box, right? And because we know that it's a maximum of 3 hours, we're going to go back 3 boxes. So 1 box, 2 boxes, 3 boxes for the start times, because these are the 3 possible start times. And because we've done that, we're left with 3 numbers. If we add them up together, we get the greatest number of visitors that could have been in the amusement park. So 42 plus 29 plus 31 is equal to 102. And that is our answer. Question 32. Ellen is on board a ship, from which she can see a lighthouse. The lighthouse transmits messages to ships by flashing 3 colored lights in different orders. Ellen knows that the possible messages are as follows. The lighthouse flashes a message, but later Ellen only remembers 2 of the flashed colors, but not the order in which she saw them. One of the colors is red. This allows her to work out which message was conveyed. What was the message? Looking at the colors, we know that it can't be another ship nearby because another ship nearby does not have red, which is one of the colors Ellen did manage to remember. And then we also see that Ellen only manages to remember 2 of the flashed colors, and it's the colors that allow her to work out which message was conveyed. Okay, so if it's the colors that helped her to work out which message was conveyed, the message most likely is not safe to dock, because Ellen would have known by the ship docking that the message was safe to dock. But it's the colors that helped her figure out the message, and therefore it can't be A. And for that same reason, it can't be C, because that would mean the ship was preparing to dock, but it didn't dock. And that's why the answer is B. Ellen used the colors to figure out the message, storm incoming. Question 33. A constellation is a group of stars in the night sky, often in the shape of an animal or another recognizable object. In ancient times, sailors used the positions of the constellations to navigate on the open seas. Amir. That must mean that the sailors had to hope they had clear skies at night, otherwise they'd be certain to get lost. Which one of the following sentences shows that Amir has made a mistake? So the question is telling us that Amir has made a mistake in what he said. Now, what has Amir said? His main idea is that sailors got around only by stars, because without clear skies, they'd be certain to get lost. So their only mode of being en route or navigating is with stars. Now the question is asking us, what is the mistake in this statement or in this idea that Amir's had? Is it A, that even if the skies are clear, it might not be possible to see all the constellations? This doesn't really point out a direct mistake in what Amir is saying. It doesn't really address the main idea of what Amir is saying either, so it's not A. B, it may have been more likely to have clear skies in ancient times than it is now. Once again, what's this got to do with what Amir is saying? It's not too directly related. C, it may be that ancient sailors had other methods of navigation too. Now, this addresses Amir's main idea about navigation, whilst also pointing out the mistake that he's made, that stars may not have been the sailors' only way of navigating. So C is looking likely as an answer. Let's look at D just in case. Ancient sailors may have had other reasons to observe the stars. Once again, this doesn't really have anything to do with his main idea of navigation. And that's why C is our answer. Question 34. The diagram below shows the top view and the 2 side views of a solid cube with a thick black wire attached to it. Which cube does it represent? Okay, so we've got the top view, we've got the two side views. Right, so we know that these are the side views. Let's see if any of the side views match this. So we know that one of the sides goes around like this, loops around, right? Do any of the sides in A do that? No. Do any of the sides in B do that? No. Do any of the sides in D do that? No. The only cube that occurs in is in C, over here, this side, replicates this side view over here. And that's why the answer is C. Question 35. Anita finds a story written in the ancient language of Gaelic. She wants to have the story translated into English so that she can read it. Unfortunately, Anita cannot find a translator who can translate from Gaelic into English. However, she does know some translators who can translate between different languages as shown in this table. But Anita still cannot see a way the story can be translated into English, even by having it translated more than once. Which one of the following extra translators would make it possible? So let's look at this table, and let's first find who can translate into Gaelic or who can read Gaelic, and that is Kira. So Kira is the only person who has Gaelic. So Kira is going to be the final translator, right? Now the first translator is going to be, Kira is going to be the first translator who will translate from Gaelic into Hindi. Now we need someone who speaks Hindi. So Kiara from Gaelic to Hindi. Now from Hindi, the only other person who can speak Hindi is Adia. Now Adia will have to translate from Hindi to Italian. Now we need someone to translate from Italian because we're stuck there. So which one of the following extra translators would make it possible? We see that the only two people who can translate between Italian are Peter and Monaro, so we can rule out Yifei and Songho. Now Peter can translate between Vietnamese and Italian, and Monaro can translate between Punjabi and Italian. So let's try Peter first. So let's say Peter translates from Italian to Vietnamese. And from Vietnamese, we'll have Diego translate from Vietnamese to Spanish. Who else speaks Spanish? Diane speaks Spanish. So Diane can translate from Spanish to English. And Anita can read the story. So we see that Peter makes the translation possible. Question 36. Sally is planning to organize a street party. However, the people on her street are often very busy. Unless she is able to get her invitations printed out and posted in good time, then very few people will come to the party. Joy says if there aren't many people at the party, we'll know that Sally didn't post her invitations in time. Already there's a problem with Joy's assumption. So Joy is assuming that the only reason that there won't be many people at the party is if Sally didn't get her invitations in time. But the box tells us that the people on Sally's street are often very busy. So there might be other reasons why they might not be able to make it to the party. The invitations cannot be the only reason. Okay, so Joy is assuming too much by working backwards. I mentioned before in the previous videos that with these questions, you cannot work backwards too much because otherwise you end up assuming too much and you end up with a flawed argument. Okay, so Joy's argument is flawed because of this and her reasoning is incorrect. Samira, however, says if there are a lot of people at the party, we'll know that she did post her invitations in time. Samira is working with the logic given in the box because the box tells us that unless she is able to get her invitations printed out and posted in good time, then very few people will come to the party. But if she is able to get her invitations printed out and posted in good time, then people will come to the party, right? So Samira's logic works with the reasoning in the box, and that's why Samira's reasoning is correct. Question 37. In a competition, children complete a course which involves swimming, then cycling, then running. A team of 3 children are chosen from these 10 children to take part in a competition next Saturday. 1 child will swim, 1 will cycle, and another will run. The team will consist of the fastest swimmer, the fastest cyclist, and the fastest runner. Assuming that all children complete their part of the course in the same time as they did previously, what will be the total time taken for the team of 3 to complete the course? So in each of these columns, we're going to have to look for the fastest time, right? So what was the lowest number in swimming? It was 5.6 with Grace. The lowest time for cycling was 24.1. And the lowest time for running was 12. So like the question tells us, assuming that all children complete their part of the course in the same time as they did previously, what will be the total time taken? So now what we do is we add these numbers together. We add 5.6 plus 24.1 plus 12.0. Okay? And that gets us to 41.7 minutes. And our answer is A. Question 38. Trisha is trying to decode a secret message from her friend Brianna. She doesn't know the code, so she has to try to guess at what it might be. The coded message reads the following. Trisha says, I think that the first word of the message might be the, but that would mean that the letter E only appears once in the message, which would be unusual because E is a very common letter. Which one of the following sentences shows that Trisha has made a mistake? Now, the main thing that Trisha is talking about is how it is unlikely to be the because of the letter E. She assumes that the letter E only appears once in the message, which would be unusual because E is a very common letter. This is the main idea of her statement. Okay? So that would mean the mistake is in the main idea. The reason why this is the main idea of the statement is because this is the bit that she goes on to explain. She is trying to explain why she thinks that it is unlikely to be E, or why she thinks that it is unlikely to be the word the because of the letter E. Okay? And that's why it is the main idea. And that means that the mistake would be in this main idea. So when we read A, it says that the first word of the original message might not actually be the. This doesn't argue against the main idea of what Trisha is saying, so it can't be the A. B, Brianna's message might only contain one letter E, even if that is unusual. Now, this isn't a strong argument against what Trisha is saying because it is unusual for E to not be used, as there are only 5 vowels and all words, most words, except for very, very few, use vowels. C, the code might contain numbers and other symbols, not just the letters of the alphabet. Now, this is simply just not true because the code here, what we're seeing, doesn't seem to include any symbols at all. But D, letters in the message might not always be represented by the same letters in the code. Now, this points out a mistake in the main idea of what Trisha is saying, which is that her problem is that she thinks that it would be a problem for E to only appear only once. And now D points out the mistake that she might have made. And that's why the answer is D. Question 39. The girls' five-a-side soccer team includes 2 pairs of sisters. Whenever they have a photo taken, they always make sure that no girl is standing next to her sister. The order of the players on one photo is Janali, Alinta, Medika, Shakira, and Kilara. On another photo, the order of the players is Alinta, Kilara, Janali, Medika, Shakira. Which pair of players on the team must be sisters? So we know that there are 5 girls, and we know that the girls are never next to their sisters in photos. So using that, we're going to work backwards. We know Janali has stood next to Alinta. She stood next to Kilara and Medika. The only person she hasn't stood next to is Shakira, so she might be Shakira's sister. Alinta has stood next to Kilara, Janali, and Medika. She also has not stood next to Shakira, so she might be Shakira's sister. Medika has stood next to Alinta, Shakira, Janali, and then Shakira again. So she's never stood next to Kilara. So she might be Kilara's sister. Shakira has stood next to Medika. She stood next to Kilara. And she's next to Medika again. So she's never stood next to Alinta or Janali. We don't know for sure who is her sister. Meanwhile, Kilara has stood next to Alinta, Janali, and Shakira, but never Medika. So the only two that match are Medika and Kilara. Kilara and Medika are the only two who have never stood next to each other for sure. And that's why we're certain that Medika and Kilara must be sisters. The answer is D. Oh, that's a terrible circle. Question 40. This diagram shows a view of 3 dice labeled X, Y, and Z placed together in a row. They are standard dice with all pairs of opposite faces adding up to 7, and all 3 dice are identical. What is the sum of the 2 hidden faces of dice X and dice Y that are touching each other face to face? So, the 2 faces that are here in this crack, okay? So we know that all pairs of opposite faces add up to 7. That means the face opposite 6 in dice X is 1 because 6 plus 1 is equal to 7. And the same with dice Y. The bottom face is 1. That means the face opposite this with 2 dots has to be dice 5. Sorry, face 5 because 5 plus 2 is equal to 7. And then in dice Y, the face opposite 3 dots has to be 4 because 3 plus 4 is equal to 7. Now we're also told importantly that all 3 dice are identical. Now we see in dice Z that the faces with 2 dots, 3 dots, and 6 dots are all next to each other. Now in dice X, we can see the faces with 6 and 2, but not 3. What would happen if we were to tip dice X to look like dice Z? For example, if we tipped it over this way, so that 6 is facing this way, right? So if we tip dice X, so that like dice Z, it now has 6 on this side. Two on this side, that would mean the top would have 3 because we've simply tipped it, right? So that means this face over here is 3. And if this face is 3, that means this inside face has to be 4 because 3 plus 4 is equal to 7. So for dice X, it is 4. Now we need to figure out what it is for dice Y. Now for dice Y, How we're going to figure out the face that's hidden is we're going to tilt dice X to match dice Y because we know all the numbered sides of dice X. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of this arrow here. And I'm going to say, if I move dice X, I tilt it so that the sixes are turned around. And now the sixes match how the sixes are aligned on dice Y so that they're no longer horizontal like this, but vertical like they are on dice Y. That would mean that the side with 5 is moved to the inside, right? So when dice X matches dice Y, 5 is on the inside. That means Y's hidden side is the face with 5 dots. Okay? Y has 5 dots on its hidden side. And the question asks us, what is the sum of the two hidden faces of dice X and dice Y that are touching each other? We figured out the dots on these hidden faces, and what's 4 plus 5 is equal to 9. And that's why our answer is D. And that brings us to the end of the Thinking Skills Answer Guide videos for 2023. I wish you all the best for your test preparation, and I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you.